Mom, I can't tie my tie. Ryan's voice echoed down the stairway while I was preparing lunches in the kitchen. I quickly wiped my hands and hurried upstairs. It was particularly cold this morning, with a blanket of snow covering everything outside. This is how our hectic mornings typically begin during Minnesota's harsh winters. Coming, just a moment. Outside his bedroom, Ryan stood in his school uniform with a troubled expression. My 8-year-old son has his father's handsome features, but he's always struggled with neckties. When Michael was alive, their morning tie-tying ritual was precious father-son time. Here, like this, bring the wide end up. As I guided his hands through the motions, my 6-year-old Kevin emerged from his room, still half asleep. With his tousled hair and crooked pajamas, he looked just like a little bear cub. Good morning, Kevin. Your uniform buttons are mismatched again. Do I have to fix them? That's such a pain. My younger son, the little sweetheart, takes after me, far from meticulous. But his carefree smile is like sunshine in our home. Sometimes his innocent gestures tug at my heartstrings, especially when I think about how he's at an age when he needs a father figure the most. After getting the children ready and seeing them off on the school bus, I head to the real estate office. Our house in suburban Minnesota is a clean-looking single-family home with white walls and a blue roof. The mailbox out front still proudly displays Thompson, where we lived as a happy family of 4 until 2 years ago. In our spacious living room with its fireplace, Michael would spend weekends playing with Lego blocks with the children. At the kitchen island counter, memories linger of us working shoulder to shoulder preparing breakfast. The backyard barbecue area is filled with happy memories of parties with neighborhood families. Michael was the deputy director at an accounting firm, dedicated to both his work and family. On holidays, he would play catch with the kids or enjoy picnics at the nearby park. Such ordinary daily life was suddenly lost in an accident. But we must keep moving forward. As a real estate agent, I have one of the best track records in the area. Helping clients find their dream homes has become my life's purpose. There's a special joy in finding the perfect house for young families. Sometimes I see reflections of our own family's past happiness in their smiling faces. Though my days are busy serving as PTA vice president, I manage to keep going as a single mother thanks to support from my parents and neighbors. On weekends, my parents watch the children while I catch up on work and deep clean the house. The Brown family next door helps with Kevin's after-school activities. The Lutheran church community has been especially important. Our weekly Sunday services have become a spiritual anchor for our family. At church potlucks, my hot dish is quite popular, and the children have become well integrated with the church community. Mrs. Thompson, we've received excellent feedback on the latest property. At the office, new property negotiations await. Dressed in a navy Brooks Brothers suit, I head to work with a smile. Even when things get tough, I must stay strong for my children's future. In the evening, I prepare dinner with the children after they return from school. Ryan helps with homework while Kevin is in charge of washing vegetables. Our time together at the dinner table, sharing stories about our day, is our precious moment of happiness. Sometimes Kevin quietly mentions, "I wish I could have Dad's pancakes," but we find our own way to get through such moments. It's been 2 years since Michael passed. Though the loneliness never truly fades, supported by the children's smiles, we're building our new life one step at a time. One night, the silence was shattered by my cell phone ringing. Outside my bedroom window, a blizzard raged, typical of Minnesota's severe winters. With confused consciousness, I reached for my bedside table. An unknown number. I normally wouldn't answer, but something about a call at this hour sent a chill down my spine. "Hello, Thompson speaking." "Mrs. Thompson, I apologize for the late hour, but this is an emergency." The voice on the other end was composed yet somehow urgent. "This is Henderson from Mayo Clinic's emergency department. Your husband, Michael Thompson, was brought to our facility last night by ambulance. Could you please come as soon as possible?" Time seemed to stop in my mind. There must be some mistake. My husband passed away 2 years ago. My voice sounded distant, as if coming from far away. But the nurse's next words snapped me back to reality. "We've confirmed his identity and address from his ID. I'm sorry, but his condition is serious. Could you please come immediately?" Even after hanging up, I couldn't move for a while. Was this a dream? Or... As my mind went blank, I caught sight of my sleeping children. Ryan and Kevin in the next room. How could I explain this to them? Coming to my senses, I sprang into action. First, I left a note on the kitchen whiteboard. Had to go out for an emergency. Grandma will be here in the morning. Breakfast is in the fridge, make sure to eat. Don't worry. Love, Mom. Next, I called my parents. Despite the late hour, my mother immediately understood the situation. "I'll be right over. Drive carefully, dear." I pulled out my winter coat from the closet, checked for my wallet and phone. Usually I can get ready in 10 minutes, but my hands were shaking so much I could barely fasten the buttons. Stepping outside, the freezing cold bit at my cheeks. The thermometer showed -20 degrees. I started up the Honda Pilot, desperately scraping frost from the windshield. I found myself focusing on these small tasks, as if trying to escape reality. The streetlights created an ethereal scene as they illuminated the snow. But I had no capacity to appreciate its beauty right now. I could feel my hands trembling on the steering wheel as I rushed toward the hospital. The highway was deserted in the dead of night, but I remained tense, straining to see through the blizzard. Soft music played on the car radio, but even that seemed somehow surreal. The 30-minute drive to the hospital felt like an eternity. At every red light, memories of that day 2 years ago came flooding back. The news of Michael's accident. The police call. And identifying the body, so badly damaged by fire it was nearly unrecognizable. That day had changed our lives forever. So why? Mayo Clinic's massive building emerged as a silhouette through the drizzle. The red emergency sign glowed in the darkness. I parked in the emergency vehicle lot and stepped onto the frozen ground. As the automatic doors opened, the smell of disinfectant hit my nose. White hallways and busy medical staff, the scene was both intensely real and somehow surreal. "Mrs. Thompson. This way, please." After giving my name at reception, a nurse immediately appeared and led me to the ICU. My heartbeat echoed in my ears as we walked down the disinfectant-scented corridor. A doctor in protective gear approached and began explaining the situation. "The patient is currently in a coma. He sustained severe head trauma." The doctor's words seemed to come from far away because at that moment, what I saw changed everything about reality. The person lying in the ICU bed. Though surrounded by tubes and medical equipment, and despite the injuries on his face, there was no mistaking him. There, unmistakably, was my husband Michael, who was supposed to have died 2 years ago. I watched the third dawn break while staring at the white ceiling. The hospital visitor's chair was far from comfortable, but that was the least of my concerns right now. I just kept watching Michael's face while listening to the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. "Mrs. Thompson." Turning toward the voice from the hallway, I saw Dr. Anderson standing there with his usual calm expression. "His vital signs are stabilizing. We're seeing signs that he may regain consciousness soon." His words brought a mix of relief and anxiety flooding through me. What would he say when he woke up? How would we fill the 2-year gap? Thanks to my parents taking perfect care of the children, I was able to stay at the hospital. Still, my heart ached during video calls with the children on my smartphone. "Mom, when are you coming home? Is work really hard?" I hadn't told them the truth yet. How could I explain this situation to such young children? I felt completely lost. On the 4th afternoon, it happened suddenly. "Water." A hoarse voice made me jump to my feet. Michael was slowly opening his eyes. "Michael." While pressing the nurse call button, I grabbed his hand. The touch was so real, so familiar. "Where am I?" Medical staff quickly responded as Michael looked around in confusion. They performed various checks, consciousness, pupil response, and more in rapid succession. "Mr. Thompson, we need to check your memory." Dr. Anderson began asking questions calmly. "What is your name?" "Michael Thompson." "Your address?" "Suburban Minneapolis. Riverside Lane." "Do you know today's date?" "January 2023. His answer froze the air in the room. In Michael's consciousness, time had stopped 2 years ago. "Mrs. Thompson, could we speak outside?" In the hallway, Dr. Anderson gave a technical explanation. There might be partial memory loss, but it could be temporary. With rehabilitation, there was a possibility of gradually recovering his memories. When I returned to the room, Michael was staring out the window. His profile looked unchanged from 2 years ago. But something felt off. It was something more fundamental than mere memory loss. "Olivia, the children." That question made my heart race. He remembered the children, So why was there a 2-year gap in his memory? And why had he? Just then, there was a knock at the door. A young nurse entered and began changing the floor. And her casual comment became the beginning of all suspicions. Oh, that's right. When Mr. Thompson was admitted, there was a young woman with him. Should we contact her? The nurse cut herself off abruptly upon seeing my expression. A young woman. That night, I was reviewing documents from 2 years ago in the hospital office. Michael's death certificate. Fire scene identification materials. Insurance payment records. All the paperwork that should have been perfect. As I went through the documents, new questions kept emerging. The name of the doctor who confirmed death was nowhere to be found. Detailed DNA test results were missing. And the date on the fire scene photos. My phone rang. An unknown number. The ringtone echoed ominously through the hospital hallway at midnight. Just as I was about to answer, the call ended. As I stared at the screen, a message arrived. If you want to know the real truth, come alone. Following that, a map pin was sent. The location was the site of the factory where Michael's accident supposedly occurred. Outside the window, snow was still falling. As I stared at the map pin's location, determination grew within me. This was no longer just a story of a miraculous return. There was a truth here that someone wanted to keep hidden. And I needed to uncover that truth. For my children's sake, and for my own. An email arriving on my computer screen opened the door to all truths. Mrs. Thompson, let me introduce myself. My name is Amanda Parker. I need to talk to you about your husband, Michael. I didn't recognize the sender's name. But the attached photo made my blood run cold. It showed Michael and a woman together. A young, beautiful woman with black hair. The location was clearly somewhere in Arizona, and the date was from just 1 year ago. This is just the beginning. If you want to know the whole truth, come to Perkins at 8 p.m. tonight. Come alone. I took a deep breath. Michael was still maintaining his memory is unclear state at the hospital. But this photo was undeniable evidence. He had definitely been alive these past 2 years. I arrived at Perkins 30 minutes early. Sitting by the window, I ordered hot coffee. Outside, snow had begun to fall. Right on time, the woman from the photo appeared. Wrapped in a stylish coat, she sat down across from me with an air of confidence. I'm Amanda Parker. Michael's lover. Those words stabbed my heart like a knife. But I continued listening without changing my expression. I'll tell you everything. Our relationship, the disappearance plan, and the insurance fraud. Amanda began speaking in a composed voice. She had met Michael when she joined his accounting firm as a new hire. She was young and ambitious. He was obsessed with career advancement. They quickly became close. But that's not all. Michael had debts. Failed securities investments. Quite a substantial amount. I was stunned by this revelation. True, Michael had been mentioning work stress more frequently. But I never imagined he was hiding such serious problems. That's when he came up with it. The perfect plan. Amanda took out her smartphone and began showing photos. Detailed pictures of the factory fire. Copies of the forged death certificate. Insurance claim documents. Everything had been meticulously planned. But why now? We were supposed to start a new life in Arizona. The insurance money was already in our new account. Just then, the restaurant door opened, and a familiar figure entered. It was Michael. That's enough, Amanda. Changed out of his hospital gown, he approached our table with a weary expression. Olivia, no more hiding. I'll tell you everything. Michael slowly sat down. His eyes held a darkness I'd never seen before. I was the worst husband and the worst father. I betrayed the children, betrayed you. The confessions poured out like a flood. Massive losses, insecurities, investments. Frustration over missing a promotion. The affair with a young colleague. An insurance fraud conceived as a solution to everything. The factory fire was completely premeditated. Arranging an unidentifiable body, falsifying DNA test results, perfect documentation for the insurance company. The plan was only possible because of Michael's accounting expertise and inside help. A new life in Arizona, that's what I thought. But Michael lifted his coffee cup with trembling hands. When I had the accident at the construction site last week, everything changed. While unconscious on the way to the hospital, I saw the children's faces. Ryan and Kevin. Suddenly, Amanda stood up. We had an agreement. This was for our future. It's over. Michael's voice was quiet but firm. I'll take full responsibility. Return all the insurance money. And he turned to me. Olivia, I have no words to apologize. Just then, my phone rang. It was my parents. Thinking it might be about the children, I quickly answered. Olivia. It's terrible. The police are here. My mother's frantic voice froze the air in the restaurant. Amanda turned pale and stood up. Michael let out a deep sigh. And I realized that the moment had come for all the questions of the past 2 years to be answered. Intense anger. Deep sadness. The pain of betrayal. And above all, thoughts of my children. Various emotions swirled within me. On a pleasant spring Saturday afternoon, I was tending to the soil in our new home's garden. Mom, where should I plant this flower? Kevin showed me a small pansy seedling in his hands. Beside him, Ryan was already meticulously creating sections in the flower bed. 3 months since moving, the children had adapted to the new environment better than expected. Our new home is in a quiet residential area of St. Paul, about a 30-minute drive from Minneapolis. Though it's a more compact townhouse than before, large windows let in abundant sunlight, creating a bright and open space. After the incident, everything moved quickly. The insurance company's investigation revealed the full extent of Michael and Amanda's insurance fraud. Amanda was charged with fraud and ultimately received a 3-year prison sentence. Her ambitious nature had eventually led to her downfall. Michael received a suspended sentence after promising full confession and restitution. He's now working to repay the insurance money while participating in a rehabilitation program. Recently, he's been allowed monthly supervised visits with the children through the court. You know, when I met Dad the other day, he said he really did a bad thing to us. Ryan mumbled while working in the flower bed. His expression seemed too mature for an 8-year-old as he looked after his younger brother, making my heart swell. Both boys are excelling at their new school. Kevin joined the choir, and Ryan is the pitcher on the baseball team. It's my secret pride when teachers at parent-teacher conferences praise them. They're such well-mannered children. Work is going well too. My previous track record earned me a position as a senior agent at a major real estate company in St. Paul. With the option to work from home 3 days a week, it's become easier to balance work and child rearing. Mrs. Thompson. Your garden is looking lovely. Mrs. Watson from next door called over the fence, holding a freshly baked apple pie. Her kindness has been a blessing ever since we moved in. Looking forward to tomorrow's potluck at church. Oh yes, I'm using a special recipe for my hot dish this time. The new church community has warmly embraced our family too. Our weekly Sunday services have become precious moments of peace. As evening fell, we finished gardening and enjoyed lemonade at the terrace table. Watching young maple leaves swaying in the breeze, I found myself reflecting. Yes, Michael's betrayal left a deep wound in my life. But that trial also strengthened the bond between me and my children. Hey Mom, I have a baseball game next weekend. Will you come watch? Of course, Ryan. And we'll go to Kevin's choir competition too. Yay! My heart fills with warmth at the children's innocent smiles. Just as the flowers we planted in the spring garden will bloom beautifully, our family's new life is surely moving forward with hope. As the first stars begin twinkling in the dusk sky, I let out a quiet sigh and smiled gently. Well, shall we start preparing dinner? I'll help. Me too. As I headed to the kitchen with the children, I was certain. This was the new form of happiness that God had prepared for our family. 1 year later. I'm talking with my counselor in a room at Mayo Clinic. Mrs. Thompson, your progress over these past few months has been remarkable. True, those events still sometimes appear in nightmares. But they no longer cause the same pain as before. Leaving the counseling session, Minnesota's spring breeze caressed my cheeks. My parents were waiting in the parking lot with the children. Today is Ryan's state baseball tournament, followed by Kevin's choir recital. As I got into the car, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. There was a peaceful smile there that I couldn't have imagined 2 years ago. Life sometimes presents us with cruel trials. But by overcoming these trials, I believe we can find our true strength. Mom, let's go. Hearing the children's voices from the back seat, I nodded. Yes, our story has only just begun. I'm sure wonderful new chapters await us. As I started the engine, I looked up at the sky. The spring sunlight was dazzling in its brilliance,